Good morning, Jerusalem. Or should I say, good morning to the brave few still loyal to David, who's out there in the wilderness wearing dust instead of a crown. Because today, Upper Kingdom, we're diving deep into the days that almost broke your favorite king. You know you love me. XOXO, Gossip Girl. Let's rewind to the moment the trumpet blasts echo from Hebron. Messengers come flying into Jerusalem screaming, "Absalom is king!" David's face goes ghost white. My palace sources said he just stood there for a moment, silent, as if every psalm he ever wrote had suddenly fallen off a cliff. He called his servants and said, "We have to flee, or none of us will escape Absalom." And girls, you've never seen a palace empty so fast. Silk robes stuffed into travel sacks, jewels forgotten in chests, guards running in circles. It was chaos. David fled barefoot, weeping as he crossed the Kidron Valley. Loyal men around him, some crying, some silent, all terrified. My brother said David covered his head with his cloak, dust in his curls, his royal robe trailing through the mud like a servant's rags. And who was right there with him? The priests, carrying the Ark of the Covenant, ready to follow David anywhere. But David turned to them and said, "Take the Ark back into the city." Because even in exile, David knew God wasn't his personal good luck charm. And honestly, that's why we still sing his psalms. Meanwhile, there's Mephibosheth drama. Remember him? Saul's grandson, crippled in both feet, whom David had welcomed into his court. Suddenly, his servant Ziba shows up, bringing donkeys, food, and wine, claiming Mephibosheth stayed in Jerusalem, hoping to reclaim Saul's throne. David, shocked and hurting, believed Ziba. He gave him all of Mephibosheth's lands. But girls, gossip hint. Mephibosheth later claimed Ziba was lying through his teeth. Classic palace intrigue. And then Shimei. Shimei, Saul's bitter relative. David's barely out of the city when Shimei shows up on a hilltop, hurling rocks and curses, screaming, "Get out, you man of blood!" Joab's brother Abishai wanted to go slice Shimei's head off, but David said no. Because when your own son has stolen your kingdom, one extra hater with pebbles isn't your biggest problem. Meanwhile, back in Jerusalem, Absalom arrived with a whole army. Trumpets, cheers, women throwing flowers, and right behind him, Ahithophel, David's old counselor, who'd switched sides. My brother said that betrayal hit David harder than any sword. Ahithophel told Absalom, "Sleep with your father's concubines. Let all Israel see you've taken your father's place." And that's exactly what Absalom did. On the palace roof, under the sun, for all of Jerusalem to see. I can barely type it without blushing, but there it is. Absalom didn't just take David's throne.
And then, praise the Lord,
he took
three
David's
men showed
wives,
up with beds,
because in the
basins,
ancient world
pottery,
that screamed
wheat, barley, lentils, honey, sheep, cheese. It was like the royal catering tent rolled into the desert.
And girls, that gave David hope. Because sometimes it only takes a loaf of bread and a kind word to remind a king he's not forgotten. Meanwhile, Absalom's plotting his next move. Ahithophel advised him, "Attack David tonight while he's tired." But another counselor, Hushai, who was secretly loyal to David, told Absalom to wait and gather a huge army. Absalom chose Hushai's advice. Bad idea. Because while Absalom delayed, David regrouped. Scouts came in, troop movements planned. David split his army into thirds under Joab, Abishai, and Ittai the Gittite. David wanted to go out with them, but his men begged him to stay back for safety. And before the battle, David told his generals one thing: "Be gentle with the young man Absalom for my sake." My brother said the soldiers exchanged glances, knowing this order would break David's heart. And then the armies clashed in the forest of Ephraim. Absalom's troops routed, and Absalom himself, gorgeous, vain Absalom, rode his mule under an oak tree and his famous hair caught in the branches. His mule ran on, leaving him hanging between heaven and earth. Joab found him there, ignored David's command, thrust 3 javelins into Absalom's heart. Soldiers finished the job. And with that,
The rebellion was over. Word came back to David. My brother said David stood in the city gate, trembling, asking again and again, "Is the young man Absalom safe?" When he finally heard his son was dead, he climbed the stairs above the gate and sobbed, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, would I had died instead of you." The whole army slunk back into the city as if they'd lost the battle. No cheers, no trumpets, just the sound of a broken father weeping for the son who betrayed him. So that's David's exile, Upper Kingdom. One son raped his sister, another son murdered him, another son stole the throne and died hanging from a tree. And through it all, David kept writing songs to God, because he knew only the Lord could carry a heart shattered into pieces. And me? I'm still here, tambourine in hand, telling every secret I can gather. Because in Jerusalem, a crown might glitter, but the stories beneath it always shine brighter. And don't worry, Upper Kingdom, because next time we'll talk about how David returned to his throne and the shadows that still haunted him. XOXO, Gossip Girl.